All right, we are here back with Together We Feel this week. Little later in the week, I was not feeling so well earlier this week, so I moved the panel from Monday to Thursday. If you're thrown like, what is happening? Summer is happening. Schedules are wild. I got a little bit sick, all the things, but we are here today and we're going to talk about making a difference from where we sit. And I've got two friends with me here, Mary Rothwell and Raina Worthy. I've gotten to be a guest with Mary. She's gotten to be a guest with me. That episode's going to come out this fall. And then Raina, I literally met last week, but she was such a good fit for this panel. I was like, oh, join us next week because you're a great fit for this panel. And then I went and changed the day on her Monday and messed the whole thing up and forgot, but she's still here. She still came back.
Yes.
She believed in the process and believed in the topic, and we're here. All of us in this making a difference from where we sit have done that very thing. And I think we as women are kind of legendary for doing that. If you look over time at these big pivotal movements that have happened through history, there's a woman behind it just making a difference right where she was, not letting narratives or stigmas or stereotypes get in her way, just showing up and doing the thing and being the solution. And we live in a world today that can feel very overwhelming, and it feels like we don't know where to start. And so all three of us have learned, just start right from where you are. What is that thing that's nudging at you? What is that resource that you have, that you've learned about, that you can share with someone? What is that voice that you have an opportunity to highlight? Whatever that is, we've all done that in our own way. And so I'm going to allow Mary and Raina to each share why they wanted to be part of this conversation and what it is they have done to show up from right where they're sitting. So let's, first of all, welcome both of you. I'm so glad to have you both with me here today.
Thank you.
You bet. Mary, let's start with you. What was appealing about this topic to you? And then tell everybody what it is you offer from where you sit.
Okay. So I am a licensed therapist. Now, in the United States, you can only do that from the state you live in. And so that is part of what I do. But I retired unexpectedly due to a situation at my work. And I worked in college student mental health, which was very busy. There was never a lack of something to do. So when I retired, I felt like I was a little adrift. But I thought about what is really important. And as a therapist, you tend to not talk about yourself. You sort of meet the clients where they are. But there was just this thing in me, like I want to help women take up their space, because I heard so often from my young college women that they would abdicate some of their power. So whether it was like in a sexual relationship, or even if they were in a non-traditional major, like an engineering major, a math major, they felt that, diminishing, where they might be the only female in a class of 30 or 50. So, I think a lot of times, as Melissa said, like, we have so much power and so many wonderful gifts that we bring, but we tend to sort of shrink sometimes. And so that's why I chose No Shrinking Violets as the title of my podcast. And I basically have women on my podcast that have compelling stories. And sometimes they've chosen their career or their work right now based on their own challenges because they want to help other people. And that might sound familiar to Melissa. And, so I think, being able to bring that voice to people has just been, it's just totally opened things up. And even today, I just met Raina, but I've known Melissa, but that's been the gift that I didn't anticipate, is meeting so many women and helping to get that message out. So it's literally, this is where I sit every day, and getting that message out to people has just brought me gifts that I didn't even anticipate, but I just love the work.
Yeah. Those gifts you don't anticipate, that is such boy, that was my story too. I mean, my story is I started this in 2021 with a podcast because I wanted to get the conversation going with women that taking care of yourselves is not selfish. It's actually really necessary. And we need to stop believing all of the narratives around it that are telling us otherwise. And we need to start addressing all the pieces and spaces that impact our health and get those in alignment with who we are and start living our most authentic, healthiest lives with the filled cup, so that we don't hit walls, so that we don't burn out, so we don't see these health impacts. And so it is that, it's that very, very thing. And what I've gotten out of it is this tremendous network of women, literally hundreds of women that I have met now all over the world that I am connected with, these friendships that I have created with women all over the world, in Sweden, France, Australia. I mean, it's Canada, the US. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. India. I mean, I think about, I just can't even, I can hardly believe it's my life. And, England. I mean, I keep thinking of Ireland. I keep thinking of countries and people that I've connected with that would never happened. And how it's changed me, how it's changed my life, how it's filled me in a way that I didn't even know was possible or that I needed. But it all started with this idea of like, from right here, from where I sit, I started in my closet because that had the best sound effects in the house I was at the time in West Texas. I'm now in Central California with a microphone and a pop filter and a laptop and a lot of heart and hope and some willing friends and pioneers that I knew throughout the country that came on in season 1 and were willing to put their voices out and be part of this. And so it really can be that thing that's tugging at your heart. Did I think 5 years ago that I would have a podcast and a panel show and a book and do public speaking and have an online course and be offering, one-on-one advising for this framework that I've created with my team? No, no. I was working at a nonprofit as an engagement manager and seemingly just kind of rolling along, doing my thing on a very committed healing journey, but had never thought that this was possible. And a dream wall with my husband on his birthday, in March of 2021. And here we were. So, I think too, for both Mary and I, we both hit these situations where it's like, I feel like there's something I can bring to the conversation on a broader perspective. And Raina, I feel like that's exactly what happened with you too in your neck of the woods. So tell us your story.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Raina, the founder of the Desk of a Navy Wife, and that is a platform that's dedicated to empowering military spouses. So providing resources, helping them connect with one another. And I also have a podcast, same title, the Desk of a Navy Wife. And on that podcast, I amplify the voices of military spouses. And for me, when I decided to start this journey, it started from initially just being fed up, to be honest. As a military spouse, many of us are used to either being put on the back burner or we don't have a seat at the table at all in decision making. That does impact us. And often when it comes to our voices, we feel like they're either, shut down immediately, or they're not heard at all. And for me, I said, I became a government contractor a couple of years back. And I started to learn more and more about resources, and I started to connect more and more with different communities that supported the military spouses. But a lot of military spouses I found didn't know they existed. And so I felt like, why don't I fill that gap? Let me help share these resources, share these connections. As far as military spouses that felt like their voices weren't being heard, why don't I put you on this platform so they can? And they spoke their stories, they told their stories, they shared insights with other military spouses. And some entrepreneurs are on that podcast as well, sharing their stories and what came along for them and how they help the community. And with all of that, I do it from my desk. That is why it's called the Desk of a Navy Wife, because it started where I sat. I started on my phone. So kind of like you were in the closet. I was just talking on my phone and I said, you know what? I'm gonna wing it. And I started in 2024. So I am just 1 year old
Wow.
with the podcast, but reaching out and having these great relationships with military spouses and again other government contractors really expanded for me, and it took off. I'll say that the collaborations happened so fast, and that's how I was able to meet you and other women that same. We're going to make a difference. We're going to change the narrative, or if we're not liking something, let's do something about it. And
Yeah.
that's what kicked it off.
Yeah. Let's bring a light to these things. I loved how you became the bridge. You're like, wait a minute. These resources are over here. These people over here need them, but they don't know how to get to them. And they,
Exactly.
so we need a stopgap here. We need somebody to create this bridge to get the things that exist already
Yes.
to put them to use to those people who need them the most. And I mean, I think that, it's said there's so many things that go into, and Raina and I talked about this when we met in our pre-meet about there's so many things that go into being a military spouse that you carry that it and there's a load and a really like, I had Dr. Janelle Wells and Dr. Doreen McCauley on last month on the podcast and earlier in the spring on the panel talking about that invisible work. And boy, howdy, talk about invisible work that doesn't get noticed, but is such a pivotal part of the spouse that is in the military, having the stability they need, being able to be successful, knowing things are taken care of when they're away. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that piece, and there's a lot that goes unseen. And so having a community and access to resources is such a pivotal part of that. And so I love, Raina's like, this is no, we're going to build a bridge, and it's going to be me, and we're going to do this. And I love that. I love that you took that and what you saw. And like I said earlier, that's what we as women do. You look through history, there are women time and time again stepping up, being the answer to the question, hearing the same complaint over and over again. It's like, no, there's got to be a solution to this. We've got to do better than this. And what can I do to move the needle? And I think that's what it is. Look right in your yard where you are, women. If you're struggling to figure out, you don't have to solve everything. It's none of our responsibilities, but just where is it that you can show up where you are? It doesn't have to be starting a podcast. So that's happens to be something that we've all tapped into, but who is it what neighbor needs your support? What friend needs that phone call a week? What dog needs walking? What person in the grocery store line just needs that smile? I mean, there's finding those ways that you can make a difference right from where you sit, not asking more of yourself than what you have, tapping into that well that exists within you that's filling and taking care of yourself within it. Because I think for all of us, we've probably had to recognize, all right, with doing this, there's an emotional labor that goes into this.
Yes.
Which
there is.
Yeah. So speak to me, Raina, you first, and then Mary. Talk to me about that, learning about that, because was talking to you guys about that. I have to continually watch that. For me, I'm learning, this was my epiphany today, looking at my calendar instead of looking at how many hours I have available that day, what is my mental and emotional capacity that day based on what it is I'm signed up for, and looking at my schedule that way instead of feeling like I've got to fill all the hours in the day. But Raina, go ahead, talk about a little bit about that emotional impact.
Yeah. So emotional impact for me, well, one side is like the scheduling. So I can attest to that, and having to be okay with saying, no, I'm not available on this day, or no, I can't reschedule it for next week, even if that person's available. In the beginning, I'll admit I did feel bad because it was like, oh man, there's so many opportunities. Absolutely, I will be flexible, because as military spouses, we are taught and we learn to be flexible. And I was like, you know what? I can't carry that mindset into this. If I am pushing for making a difference, then I need to also make sure I put up that barrier when it comes to saying, no, I'm not available. Let's try to push it next month, or a time when I am, or when we're both available. And then there's the emotional side of hearing these stories and from these military spouses. And I am very much solution focused. So when I hear that there's an issue, I'm like, how can we fix that?
Yeah.
And my husband has also helped me realize you cannot fix everyone's challenges.
Yeah.
I don't volunteer to fix everyone's challenges and problems. But I think for me, it's like, oh, but I'm seeing it this way, or and I'm seeing it that way, and I want to help so bad. And so having to have that disconnect as well, not disconnect
Yeah.
from the empathy side, because I am an
Sure.
empath. So definitely staying there, but having to reel it back with, okay, I may not be able to be physically there, but I can provide some resources. Or I know someone who can. If that's something you need, let's make that connection
Yeah.
and doing it that way. So it's been a balance. It's something I teach and talk about all the time, but it's I'm still learning to practice what I preach when it comes to that.
Same, literally. Like I'm having to check myself all the time and utilize the framework, the very framework that I utilize with everybody else. But yeah, I think it's that reminder that if we aren't able to show up from a full cup space, then we're minimizing the difference that we can make, which isn't fair to anybody, in that space. Mary, for you, I'm curious, as a therapist, you've got all the tools and resources, but sometimes the hardest one to apply them to can be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when I did my work with college, you took whatever came in the door. And I really did love that. So once I had to decide what I was going to do, I sort of was misdirected because I was listening, like people said, I want this and I want this. So I created some things that didn't resonate with me. And so I didn't love it. And I think when you have space to do something you love, like, kind of hone in on that. And so I think the other thing, as far as kind of knowing how to manage time and energy, Melissa, I actually took a page from your book. So I remember when I talked to you, you said when you're recording your podcast, you have breaks built in to your time, right? And so I was like, I think I need to do that. So, I have a lot of guests lined up, but what I try to do is, because we have to work ahead, right? You don't record, or you hope you don't record like 3 days before you're supposed to drop the
Right.
episode. But so I looked at the whole way to the end of the year, and I protecting weeks around the holidays so that as I, work ahead, I don't lose. And I think that's where we get lost sometimes in the process. And all of a sudden, like that happened to me initially because I got onto Podmatch where you can find guests. And all of a sudden I had like 17 people lined up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? And I felt that pressure. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's my calendar. So then I really started to think about, how do I want to group these tasks? And I think that's part of it, is because you do hear these, I have people reach out to me, this really helped me. And so you sort of get caught up in, I got to keep going, but you do keep going. But I think it's okay to sometimes say, okay, for these 2 weeks, I'm actually just going to not record anything and give myself permission to just, I think we all need days too to think about, where are we headed? If we're not thinking about, especially as hosts, kind of
Right.
like what is kind of keep focusing on the mission. And cultivate some of these guests that we know our listeners are going to love. And I think we do need some days of just sitting back and really thinking about strategy instead of going and going. So that's sort of the way I took a page from your book, Melissa, and protected some time.
Yeah, and I total transparency, I got that the hard way. Like I started out going, because I think when you see that you're making an impact and people want to be a part of it, all of a sudden, all of these habits and all of these narratives that we've heard as women start coming up of, we got to accommodate, we got to make sure we don't make any mad, we got to want to say no to anybody. Hold the fort. My husband also reminds me all the time, this is your thing. You're the boss here. You get to decide who has access and when they have access, and if it's good for you or healthy for you or not. And remember what you tell everybody else, showing up with a full cup, present, all those things is the healthiest for everybody that's involved. And so releasing that idea of like, oh my gosh, I'm scheduled out so far. What do I do? Da, 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 da. It's sometimes you just have to say no. And,
Right.
or you have to say, can you connect with me 6 months from now? And just know that that's the best you can do with that. And knowing that, and remembering you can't be everything to everyone. And it's not your job to be going back to showing up from where we sit and outsourcing to, like Rainey said earlier, those resources that we already have
Yes.
access to, all these fabulous people we've come in connection with that might be the answer, that might be the connect point. It's not our responsibility to fix every story we hear, but provide resources. And we've given them a voice. Like I think it's also too, we've already played a role by giving a voice and a platform. And so, and to Mary's point of staying, checking every once in a while, am I still in alignment with my mission? Am I still in alignment with why I originally started this? Or if I learned something new, has my mission shifted a little? And do I need to make sure that, my website or my platforms reflect that shift? And have I communicated that, and listening to what the feedback that you're getting on that, but making sure you stay true to you. And you'll start feeling angsty when you say yes to something that you're not in alignment with, and I've done it. And I've had to finish out the commitment and then pull back later and be like, learned a lot, not going to continue this. Shouldn't have said yes in the first place, but we learned and now we know, so continuing to not ask, because it's very tempting, even if as we start from where we sit, whatever it is you've started. I have women on that have started nonprofits, they have started movements, they have become chairs of things, they have written books, they're speakers, TED Talks. I mean, I talk to women that do all kinds of incredible, amazing things. And the one thing that they've all come to and learned is they've stayed true to who they are. They've stayed in line with, they've learned that they're not, all three of us, we're not for everyone. We're not even, our audience isn't even everyone. Our audience is at these niche areas of, specific spaces, and being okay with that. Like, we aren't here to be, trying to think of an example right now. We don't have the big platforms behind us. We don't have the big promoters.
We're not Mel Robbins, right? We're not Mel Robbins.
Thank you. Perfect example.
And I'm okay with that, actually. I'm absolutely quite okay with that.
Yeah, that perfect example. Thank you. That all in our lane. So so talk to me too, ladies, about what you would tell someone who's listening today. I've got this thing I want to do, whether it's starting a book club about a specific topic, or starting a community movement about a problem that you see, or starting a podcast like we've done, or whatever it is, a nonprofit, whatever it is that is moving you in your space. What are some words of advice that you would have for them? And Mary, let's start with you.
Sure. So I'll give you a little tidbit, factoid first, that when men look at job descriptions, they think they are okay to apply if they have like 50% of the qualifications. Women think they need to have nearly 100%. So I'm here to tell you that the best thing you can do is just start. You don't have to know the whole path. But if you, I didn't know anything about podcasting, about editing audio, about microphones. And I think when we get hung up on the minutia, that's just a delay tactic. It's fear. So, it's, if you can take the first step, I've only been doing this since January, I listened to my first episodes and I'm like, oh my God. But you know what? You just have grace with yourself, the same as you would with somebody else. And you find your way. You can't find your way without doing it. And so I would say, just take the step. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know anything. If you're drawn to it, just put your first foot on the path, and then you find people to support you and help you. And you just grow as you go.
Yeah. And you just keep taking that right step. Yeah. Raina, how about you?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I agree with Mary 100%. Do not sit on it at all. You do not have to be perfect
Mm.
at all. You will learn as you go. With you, I did not know anything about podcasting either, or editing videos, or my website. I built that entire website not using AI. This is before the AI really started pushing forward. I was
Oh, wow.
looking up
Yeah.
how to do this on your website. How do you add this feature? And at night, sometimes I go through every other week and I'm still adding things. I'm still changing things until it matches the way I like it to be. And that's okay.
Mhm.
You learn, you grow, and you'd be surprised what type of relationships and collaborations you can make. If it's meant for you and this is
Mhm.
your calling, there's going to be signs that will show up for you. And it'll be whether it's a
Yeah.
person, or whether it's those connections that you're making, or it could just be an experience or an opportunity that gets presented to you that you're like, oh,
Mm.
this is meant for me. This is my path. So it's definitely, like
Yeah.
you said, stay true to yourself, stay true to your heart, and keep it rolling.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love, yeah. I just, it's taking that next right step, trusting your intuition. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, when I went into that dream wall with my husband, there was no podcast idea rolling around in my head. None. I mean, no one was more surprised than me. And that dream wall was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be for him. I was just doing it with him as a support mechanism on his birthday. He asked me to do it on the afternoon of his birthday. He'd been reading these books and he wanted to try it. He's trying to stretch himself. And I'm the one that ended up coming up with the thing out of it. And a couple hours later, I'm like, huh, am I nuts? And I'm like, well, I know these
Mm-hmm.
people, and don't be afraid to, bring in those people, that maybe know how to do some things you don't know how to do.
Mhm.
Right.
I went and grabbed a couple of college students that were my daughter's age that had some experience in doing some things. They were 2020 college grads, and they needed experience to put on the resume because they hadn't, it was 2021 spring and they were still looking for jobs because not probably not a worse time to come out of college lately than that time. And so, look around you and see what you have. I was like, I don't have a lot to give you guys except for experience. But if you want to build this website and set up these social media, platforms for me and help me with some editing, I can throw some experience your way. So look around you too, of those, those people around you that might be able to help and assist you. And if that's the thing that's hanging you up, I knew I was working full time. We still had kids coming and going. I knew if I was going to be able to keep this running, I needed a little bit of support. So I looked around me and, oh yeah, I actually do have 2 people accessible right now that are totally capable and it was a win-win. Everybody won in that situation. So look around too for those helpers that are already there and just see what they have to say. But don't let those little things hang you up. Don't let those fear, those nagging voices that are trying to keep you down, those doubts, all those things. Because there are plenty of people in my life who thought, you're going to do what? And it was the first thing I'd ever done in my life. I literally went into it with no expectations. Like I'm a very competitive person, and I'm a very have had to really unlearn a lot of the narratives of what success means and, all numbers and all these things. But this was a thing that I just no, these conversations need to start. And I think that the easiest way to start them and the broadest opportunity to get them out in the world is this method of podcasting. So we're going to give it a whirl, and we're going to start having these conversations, and we're going to see how it feels and how it hits. And we're just going to go from there. I had no real plan. I had no real plan. I was meeting with a woman a few weeks ago. She really helps with PR and branding. And I'm like, I did this totally backwards. I built the thing first, and then I called you. And she's like, well, and she's like, but that's how it authentically came out. You wouldn't have been able to do these other things had you not started there first. She's like, you've done the hard work. Now we just need to let the world know that, that it exists and you exist. And so don't let those unorthodox, oh, this isn't very unorthodox. So.
Well, you did the thing we're saying, Melissa. You just did it. And then you went back. There's a million people a million people will say, here's the way to do it. And you have to find what resonates with you. And again, you
Yes.
didn't get hung up on, I have to create the perfect, LinkedIn profile, and I have to do this
Right.
sales page. And you just followed your heart, and all the good things fell in place. Now you're just shining it up. So I think you did exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, I that's a
Yeah.
good point. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And yeah, it was really funny because again, but I think this is the way when you're willing to trust yourself and not let the
Mhm.
voices, because there were plenty of naysayers saying that I was doing it wrong. Oh,
Yeah.
you're when I would come up with something new, oh, you're confusing people. I'm like, my goal wasn't to be the number one of any one of these things. My goal was
Right.
to create a platform with
Mhm.
multiple avenues for women to get access to this information. And so I
Yes.
started with the podcast because that was the thing I could come up with first that I could do. Like I could do that pretty immediately. The other things came organically out of that. And so I had to really kind of push past those voices. And I definitely questioned myself. I was like, huh. And the other thing I've learned too, and this comes from my friend Rachel Lavin, and I constantly have to remind myself of this because I'm very competitive, but not to chase. Like, don't chase after things that everyone else is telling you you should be doing. If it doesn't feel right to you, trust that. Don't chase that thing or be afraid of missing out. The things that are meant for you will find you. And I say that
Mm.
out of both sides of my mouth because I also have to remind myself of that every day.
Yes. And you know what, Melissa, I'll add to that because I feel like not only opportunities, like don't chase those because like you said, what's meant for you will come, but also sometimes it's those relationships or collaborations or whatever. If you're like, oh, I keep doing this, I keep doing this, I keep doing this, and they're not responding or they're not doing this, then it's not meant for you to have that relationship with them.
Yeah.
Move forward to another one. There might be a greater opportunity waiting for you on the other side, and you just haven't tapped into it yet. So I agree with you with that.
I love
Yeah.
that. And also take a risk. I've reached out to some people that,
Mm.
and they ended up agreeing to be on my podcast. I'm like,
Yes,
really? And I didn't say
really?
that, but I'm like, I'm just going to go out on a limb, and what the heck? What do I have to lose? And when they said the first person that wrote a book I loved, and it's an international book, and I reached out to her, and in a day she was like, I'd love to be on your podcast. And I was like, oh crap. Now I'm like so nervous. But it was great. So I think it's both. Take the risk, but Raina's
Yes.
exactly right. If you find yourself like trying and it's not connecting back, like lean back from it and look in another direction.
Looking back. The sign, yes. And
Yeah.
you know what, Mary, I did the same thing. So there's a famous author. Her name's Catherine Trotman, and she helps with the resumes and federal resumes, and she's really known in the federal sector. And she started with military spouses resume writing and everything. And I reached out to her as well for it was an in-kind donation, and I didn't think I was going to hear from this woman at all. And she said yes, she agreed. She gifted books, and I was able to gift them to military spouses. But that just made me think of like, when you put yourself out there, sometimes you'd be surprised how who's willing to work with you or wants to. So yes, put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Because the worst that can happen is it doesn't happen. But the best that
Right.
can happen, and I actually have a sign in my office that said, "What's the best that can happen?" Because we don't often think of that. We think of the worst. So yeah, I love that, Raina. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, and it can't happen if we don't ask. I mean, the one guarantee is it will not happen if you don't put it out there. And if they say no, well, they were okay, so they said no. Now you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you lose nothing. And so I think
Right.
it's like, but I think it's like releasing that idea of what success is. So interesting. I had a guest kind of turn the tables on me when I was interviewing her for this fall episode. She's like, well, do you see yourself as successful? And I'm like, and it was right as I was getting ready to release the online course. And I have just added these other things that hadn't really like picked up momentum yet, like still trying to get it out there for people to know about it. And so was like kind of feeling the weight of that. But also, and I was like, oh, I'm like, oh, you put me on the spot there. I'm like, I've had to really rethink what success means to me and what it looks
Yes.
like for me. And I've had to like really learn a narrative around that is very different than the narrative I was originally taught. And that even
Yeah.
some people around me believe is true versus what is true for me. So don't, so when these things are bumping up against you, success is the impact, whatever impact you make, whether it's one person or 10,000. If
Right.
you have provided a resource for one person today, this week, this month, you've changed a life. You've had an impact. And the success is that you didn't let fear stop you from doing the thing that your heart was telling you needed to be doing. And so if you can think of success that way, success is not continually saying no to yourself. Success
Right.
is saying yes to you. Yes, I trust you. Yes, I'm listening to you. And I'm going to honor that. And, I just had a episode drop on the podcast today with my friend Cheryl Schultz, and she talks a lot about are you embracing our uniqueness and not missing the opportunity to utilize and step into our uniqueness, however that looks in the world, because there's only one of us. There's only one of us. No one else is like us. And so are we going to save the world today with this thing we're doing by ourselves? No, but collectively, if we all participate, we might have a fighting chance of making some shifts.
Right. We're changing lives. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So letting go of that, and what, this, because I think especially as podcasters, we can all connect with this idea of numbers and listens and, and downloads. And it can be really easy to get hung up on that. And so continually going back to what, Mary was saying earlier, going back to your mission, going back to your why. Are you honoring that? Are you putting out good content? Are you listening to the feedback you're getting and honoring that? If the answer is it feel true to you, does it still feel like what you should be doing? Because all of us will get to a day in a season where it's no longer time to do this anymore. And so also listening to that too, and stepping into that new season. And instead of seeing it as a loss, like, okay, where's that new area that I can show up in today? In this new season that I'm in, where am I making an impact today? It might be I'm making an impact with my grandkids. It might be I'm making an impact with my children in the season they're in. It might be I'm making an impact in my workspace in these new responsibilities as I'm training and preparing these younger professionals. It might be in my community. I mean, you just never know where it is, whether it's in relationships, I think we've created this idea of what success and making an impact looks like. And it looks like whatever season you're in and what you have to offer in that season.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy you said, go ahead, Mary.
Although I was just going to put a little asterisk on what we've been talking about, we talked about fear. And I think sometimes people think when you see someone doing something, they're not afraid. So you do it anyway, right? You can feel the fear. It's like, you don't stop walking in the rain if you want to get somewhere. You just put the umbrella up. So I think people need to understand that you can look at the outside of someone and it can look like they're like calm the whole way through. I'm not always calm the whole way through. So I think it's important for people to recognize you do it. You can be afraid and do it anyway.
Yeah.
So thank you, Raina. I just wanted to put a little asterisk there because I think, it's like, do it. Just, follow your heart. And sometimes when you follow your heart, you're really scared. And that doesn't mean it's the wrong path.
Yes. And you'll definitely surprise yourself on that. Yeah. And with you talking about numbers, I feel like a lot, of course, in social media, and even if you're trying to make connections or gain sponsors, it's, well, how many followers do you have? How many of this do you have? Or how many likes and hearts? But just know that people are watching you, whether they're liking or hearting it or commenting or not. You know that people are engaged. You can see that you're making an impact because someone's going to reach out. There are people that are watching you. So if there is someone that's like starting some type of platform or they're a little reluctant to, you'd be surprised who's like waiting to to get that information from you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so true. And I think it's real easy for corporate America to make us feel like we're not making a difference. Because because of their, and I tried to, and those are some of the things I tried to chase early on. I tried to chase
Mhm.
sponsorships before it was time. And I tried to chase, and I didn't. And I was like, I just need to keep doing what I'm doing. I need to quit
Yeah.
chasing things that aren't in alignment and keep taking the next step forward and trusting my gut and not
Yeah.
try to force things. And when I do that, then the right things will roll my way. And continuing to remind myself of having a network of supporters and people that keep you accountable and the people that understand and show up for you, so you can remind each other of that too. I mean, I think is so important. And whatever it is that you're trying to, be that impact player in.
Yeah.
And when you do hear that pushback, it's like a lot of times that is people talking out of their own fear. It has a lot less to do with you and a lot more of the own voices in their own head about their own fear or things they haven't been willing to try. So if you're feeling the nudge, go for it. What's the worst thing that can happen? It's a lot worse, I think, to wonder what would have happened if than to never try it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we see so many people that are already famous starting podcasts. And so it can be easy.
Yeah.
That's where the numbers come in. They already have a team. They already have a camera. They have editors and,
They have
PR
everything.
people, schedulers. They have all the things. And
They have everything.
yeah. So then there's the push to go from just a podcast to, put your stuff on YouTube. And I think that's the other thing to understand, sort of like we were saying, you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. If you want a true podcast and you don't want to get into the, get on YouTube, the listeners are not the same from YouTube to
It's different.
Spotify. And so I think, again, if it feels like it's not aligned, you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. But we see podcasts all the time now, these big names. It's like, I don't need to be that person. And it's actually kind of a little relieving that I'm not. So
takes a lot of pressure off.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't attain that. I mean, I'm not going to say can't, because maybe I could, but I think, we do get caught up in numbers and, but Raina, you're absolutely right. Every week there's somebody, a new city or a new country, and it might be one person, but that's okay, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I'm sure
still sitting right
here. You at first.
Yeah, we're still sitting in the same seat.
Yeah, we're all still sitting in this. Yep, exactly. Still sitting, doing it right from where we sit.
Yes. That's so cool.
Yeah, it really is. It really is cool. And thank you for that reminder, Mary, of because we will try different things on our platform, and and there's things that I pulled this out of. I'm like, you know what? We don't really fit there. Because a lot of people early on were like trying to tell us we should get on Pinterest. I'm like, I know there's a lot of women there. I have a Pinterest only because my daughter created one for me when we were trying to do some home design furniture work in a house 10 years ago. I couldn't log on to it today if I tried. I don't really get my kicks off going there. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
That's not where my creativity shows up. So I'm like, we're not getting on Pinterest, guys. It's just not my thing. I'm just not going to worry about that. I pulled this off of X or whatever it is now. I'm like, we're not going to shut down the account, but we're not actively engaging there. That's just not our people. That's not our place. And so also recognizing we don't need to put our energy into spaces that don't align with this. And when we do move on to these different platforms, and then I always tell our people, I'm like, we got a small team. I'm like, we're going to take a look at each year of where our energy is paying dividends, because it's that balance of being patient and also not forcing or chasing. So, I mean, and whatever it is you do, whatever it is you're building, but keep looking at the impact in terms of what kind of are you getting from the people that are accessing these resources. What are they telling you? What are you hearing from them? That they will let you know whether you're hitting the mark or not.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. All right. And so as we get ready to wind this down here in this conversation of making a difference from where we sit And tell like one last thought to leave with our listeners as we close up today. Raina, we'll start with you.
Okay. One last thought. It would be, let's see, believe in yourself. I know some people may feel like it's cliche, but I mean that in whether, especially for military spouses, if you know something is going on or you need someone to advocate for yourself. That's the first part. So believing in that you're going to either make a change, make an impact, or whatever journey that you're trying to set off to, taking that step to do it and just trusting the process would be something that I would tell military spouses and women alike as well, because often we do have to advocate for ourselves in different platforms, in different areas, different spaces. So yes, definitely believe in self-advocacy. That's something I believe in with.
I love that. Mary, how about you?
Okay, so I'm going to bring in, this is what the theme of my book is that I'm writing. So it's Live Like a Plant. So everybody is unique and you are exactly who you're supposed to be. So we don't say that a rose is less than a lilac or a violet, or so be the flower that you are. And we also, if a plant is not growing, we don't say there's something wrong with the plant. We look at, are they getting the nutrients? Is it getting the sunlight it needs? So be exactly who you are, because there's only one you, and that is a beautiful thing. So you just need to find the people that appreciate your voice and what you're bringing into the world. And it is kind of going back to what Raina said, believe in yourself, but you're unique and you're supposed to be. So trying to, do or be what somebody else is, that you can't do that. You can only be you. So just be the best you and just shine, like do you, and then you find success with that.
Yeah. I love the plant theme because Mary is an avid gardener. This comes very authentically from her. I love that. So good. And I think for me, it's like, know that your voice deserves to be seen, known, and heard, and look around you. Where is that place you're feeling tugged to?
Yeah.
Follow that tug. Just take that next step and follow that tug. That's how you make a difference from where you sit.
Yeah.
All right. Raina, tell people where they can find and follow you. And then Mary, I'll have you do the same.
All right. You can find me on Instagram at The Desk of a Navy Wife. I'm also on TikTok. And I am also on Facebook at The Desk of a Navy Wife. And my website is deskofaNavyWife.com.
And we can find the podcast on the website too, right? And all the platforms.
Correct. I'm sorry. Yes. Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. But you can come to my site and you'll see it all. Yes. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Mary, how about you?
I'm just going to give you my website because you find my podcast there, find everything there. So it's just maryrothwell.net. And if you want to get a little glimpse into how plants, you can be a plant and live your best life, if you go to maryrothwell.net/LLAP for Live Like a Plant, LLAP quiz, you can get this idea of how do plants live and how can you be more like that. And then you'll get my weekly email with my little plant stories and analogies. So
I love it.
I know. So good. It's so good. And for us, embracinglayers.com, find all the things and all the ways we can support you as women out there. I want to thank Mary and Raina for joining me today. I want to thank you both for being and acting on right from where you sit, being that difference, that resource in your spaces that you feel called to. You're needed. We appreciate you. So thankful to get to know you. Just another example of the amazing women that I get to connect with through this work that I've chosen to do when I decided to operate from right where I was sitting. So there's just so many rewards and connections and communities and resources that get built out of when you're willing to follow that nudge that we've been talking about. Thanks so much for being with us today. These ladies' fabulous resources are all going to be in our show notes. So go there to follow them, find them, check them out, see what they're doing as well as ours. Take good care of yourselves. And thanks so much for being with us today and have a great week.
Thank you, Melissa.
Bye.